Hey everyone, Sheila here from Lifewithpets. So today we're going to talk about betta fish that won't eat, and while I'm talking about it I'm going to just be setting up my grindal worm culture, and there is a whole story how that came about, and it did all actually come about through Jasmine not eating. So I'm going to talk about that, but I'm also going to give some tips that you can try with your betta fish if they won't eat. So as many of you know, Jasmine is our Thai import betta that came to us through Simply Betta, and I was getting very concerned once we'd had her for a few weeks because I noticed that she wasn't eating. It appeared that she was eating, but when I would actually sort of stop and watch her for any length of time, then all she was doing was taking the food in and just basically spitting it out again. So I eventually contacted Taylor and asked her what she'd been feeding Jasmine, because I was getting very concerned because she was losing a great deal of weight, and it turned out that she was feeding her predominantly grindal worms with some fluval bug bites occasionally, and I'd actually tried the bug bites, but she just wouldn't eat those. She just spit them out completely. We tried a wide variety of frozen foods. We also tried the soaking the foods in garlic, which is a very good tip and has worked for me in the past. However, this time it just didn't work at all for her. She just wasn't interested in any foods that we offered. I tried 3 or 4 different types of pellet foods. We tried every frozen food that we have available, which I think we have about 4, maybe 5 varieties, and she wasn't interested in those as well. I even tried a flake food, which I don't like feeding flakes to my fish. That is just a personal preference, but I don't like to do it, and she wouldn't eat that either. And so Taylor, once I contacted her and said, look, we were having this problem, what are you feeding her? And it turned out it was predominantly grindal worms. She sent us some straight away in the mail. So this is the culture that I've been setting up at the beginning of the video, and now what you're seeing is the culture just a few days old, and as you can see the worms are really starting to show now, and I'm just really hoping at this point that Jasmine's going to eat these, because if she doesn't, I really didn't know what else to do. So this is the first time I tried feeding them to her after letting the culture grow for a few days, and as you can see she goes straight for them, and we basically haven't looked back since. She's now been eating them for I think approximately 3 weeks as at the making of this video, and she started putting weight on, and I have actually also now got her to eat bloodworms. Prior to this she would eat the occasional bloodworm, maybe just one. If I put 2 or 3 in, she'd maybe just eat 1, and then that was it. Everything else she just completely ignored. But with the grindal worms she goes crazy for them and just eats and eats. So I'm hoping that over time we're going to be able to get her onto other foods, but right now she is predominantly still on the grindal worms. So the way that I feed them is I just do a cotton bud. Now those grindal worms, like I say, we've had about 3 weeks, so you can see just how big the culture has got, and I am able to feed our other fish now with these as well. You can see that Jasmine absolutely loves these, and I am so glad that we have got into these. I did actually want them a while back and I just did nothing about getting them. This is before we had Jasmine, and I'm so glad that we have added it to the food sources that we feed our betta fish. This is just a real close-up of the worms. This was again just a few days later. I now have to feed about 5 to 6 pieces of dog kibble. It's just like the dried food, and I put that in every day, and as you can see we have a lot of worms, and it's just great because all the fish eat them, including the guppies. The 75-gallon tank, I am able to feed that tank as well, and so it's just become another variety of food and a good food source to feed them. So with the grindal worms, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I had watched Taylor's video on them, and it is very easy to set up. Sometimes when doing this it can seem a little overwhelming in how do you take care of something that's different, but basically with this all we did was buy organic potting soil. We then put some in the bottom of a shallow Tupperware tub. Taylor then sent the culture to us, and then all I did was tip that culture into the potting soil that we had, and I added a little bit of water to it, added the dog food, and I did put the little piece of mesh over the top, and I basically just did that because I thought then it would be easy to then scrape the worms off, and I have found that that works really well for us because the worms do sort of come up through the meshing, and I'm able to then just scrape them off. So it is an excellent food source, and it is one I would definitely recommend getting a hold of. The fish absolutely love it. Obviously it's healthy, they love live foods. And the other thing that I do and really like about these, and I have noticed with all the fish doing this, it does promote like a hunting behavior, and I just think that that is great enrichment for the fish, because once the worms sort of go into the tank, a lot of them will sort of sink down to the bottom, or they'll swim around, and the fish then spend a while sort of hunting them out and finding them, and I do think that that is good enrichment for them, rather than just something floating on the top of the water and they eat it and then that's it, done. It provides stimulation for the fish and just enrichment to their environment. So if you're having trouble with your fish eating food, my suggestions would be to try a wide variety of foods. Sometimes fish can be very picky, and you think just because they won't eat a pellet or just because they won't eat a certain live food, then they're not going to eat all live foods, or they're not going to eat all pellets or all frozen foods. Sometimes with fish it is very much trial and error, and eventually you will find a food that they like. Now obviously if they are sick or there is something else going on with them, then that is something completely different. But if it is that you just have a very picky fish who doesn't like what you're feeding them, then you really do need to try a wide variety of food. Like I say, the other thing you can do is actually soak that food in a little bit of garlic juice, and that is actually a food enhancer for fish, and so it encourages them to eat. It's also very, very healthy for them as well, because it will take care of any bacterial issues maybe going on with your fish, and so it is a healthy thing to feed them. What we do with garlic for our fish is we do feed a lot of rapashi gel food, and so I actually put the garlic in that every other time I make it up. I don't do it every time, but I do it about every other time I make the food up, and then that way they are getting garlic in their diet periodically as we feed them. So this culture didn't take any time at all to get going. In fact, I'm absolutely astounded how quickly the worms have grown in this culture, but it is definitely a food source that I would recommend adding to what you already feed your betta fish, and they are definitely very, very easy to keep and to maintain. And so this is something that obviously we are going to be feeding now on a regular basis. I also think that they would be a great food for betta fish fry as they get a little bigger as well. Go ahead and leave any suggestions that you've had where you've been successful. If you've had a fish that hasn't eaten, let me know in the comments box below what worked for you, and obviously that would help people out as well. Alright guys, thanks for watching. If you're not subscribed to this channel and would like to see more videos like this, then please do so. Also, if you don't want to miss a video, make sure that notification bell is on. YouTube have been doing some messing around, and a lot of people have been saying that their notification bells have been sort of taken off, or they've actually been unsubscribed. So just check that you're still subscribed to this channel and that your notification bell is still on. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.